Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. Before we get to today's video, we're excited to announce that our official Patreon page is now live. Patrons will receive exclusive extended editions of each one of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. So if you want even more crime news coverage, head over to patreon.com/crimezone. Authorities in the Thai province of Pathum Thani say that a man has been arrested this week after he allegedly set fire to a residential building for no apparent reason. The disturbing crime took place at approximately 2 a.m. on September 18th, when the unknown man ignited a shoe rack on the building's ground floor in the Lamluk Ka district. The fire quickly expanded to a wooden panel in the room, before also spreading to nearby buildings. Bizarrely, instead of fleeing the scene, the suspect stayed around to admire his work, reportedly laughing and smiling as the fire escalated. Thankfully, nearby residents were quickly warned about the blaze and were able to escape without injuries. Emergency service workers also arrived quickly and were able to extinguish the fire before it got out of hand. Following the suspect's arrest, he was questioned in Thai, but gave no response. Authorities tried again in English, but only managed to get a few words out of him, none of which offered any explanation for the man's actions. Authorities believe that the man could be a foreigner, be suffering from mental illness, or both. The suspect remains in police custody. Authorities in the Dutch city of Almelo say that 2 people are dead and at least 1 other person is injured this week, after an alleged stabbing attack that also involved the use of a crossbow. According to reports, the incident began on the morning of September 17th, when police were called to a residential building in the city with reports of an alleged stabbing. However, when they arrived at the scene, things quickly escalated, as officers and emergency service workers were confronted by a shirtless 28-year-old man who began to fire at them with a crossbow. The man was on a 3rd or 4th floor balcony at the apartment building and fired not just at police, but also erratically at passers-by in the street below. Police were reportedly forced to return fire several times and were eventually able to take the 28-year-old suspect into custody. He was wounded during the encounter with police, but reports did not specify if this was from a gunshot or some other kind of injury. At the current time, details about the incident are scarce, but what we do know is that the 2 people who were killed were found inside the apartment building. It is believed that they died as a result of stab wounds. No information has been released about the 3rd victim. Likewise, it is unclear what, if any, relationship the suspect had with any of the victims. At the time of this recording, the suspect's name has not been released, but it is said that he is a resident of the city. The murder of a 28-year-old primary school teacher has caused significant public outrage in the UK this week, after her lifeless body was found in a park just minutes from her home. According to reports, Sabina Nessa disappeared around 8:30 p.m. on September 17th, as she was making the short walk from where she lived to a pub to meet up with a friend. Her body was found around 5:30 p.m. by a member of the public the following afternoon near the One Space Community Centre in Cater Park, in the borough of Greenwich. While an initial post-mortem investigation did not reveal an official cause of death, police say that the case is a homicide, and they fear that Sabina was targeted by a stranger. At the time of this recording, few other details about the case appear to be known. It was reported that a man in his 40s had been arrested on suspicion of murder, but that he had since been released until further investigation could be completed. The man has not been identified by name. Sabina's heartbroken family say that she had been teaching the 1st grade at Rushy Green Primary School for just over a year before her death. It had been her first teaching job out of school. The case has understandably generated significant public outrage and has been compared to other recent high-profile cases of horrific crimes against women, such as the murder of Sarah Everard and the killings of sisters Biba Henry and Nicole Smallman. The investigation into Sabina's murder is ongoing. Hong Kong police say that a 31-year-old unemployed man has been arrested on suspicion of robbery this week after he allegedly held up a 7-Eleven store in a way that authorities had never seen before. The crime started off like any run-of-the-mill robbery. On September 18th, the 31-year-old suspect entered the convenience store with a weapon, in this case an 8-inch knife, and threatened the female cashier. However, things quickly took a turn when he did not demand cash out of the register. Instead, he ordered the employee to add 5,000 Hong Kong dollars, or roughly $642 US, to 2 different WeChat Pay accounts. For those unfamiliar, WeChat Pay is an extremely popular mobile payment and digital wallet service based in China that has become massively adopted by the Chinese public in recent years. When the female employee was unable to add the funds to the account as the suspect demanded, he took matters into his own hands, jumping the counter and operating the machine by himself to send the payments. He then fled the 7-Eleven, dumping his weapon into a nearby trash bin. Police were able to use security camera footage from the store to identify the suspect, and he was arrested on September 22nd. Further investigation revealed that he had set up his WeChat account using a stolen identity card weeks before the robbery. It was also revealed that he knew how to complete the transactions at the convenience store because he had worked at another location before losing his job. The second account where the money was transferred to belonged to the suspect's friend, whom he owed money. The 48-year-old man was himself arrested for possession of illegal drugs and an offensive weapon after police also questioned him. At the time of this recording, neither the 31-year-old nor the 48-year-old have been identified by name. Hong Kong police say that this is the first robbery of this kind they have seen in the city. Authorities in the Argentine province of Santa Fe say that a woman is dead this week after she was allegedly shot in cold blood by a police officer at the side of the road. According to reports, the shocking crime took place on the morning of September 19th, when 29-year-old Claudia Gonzalez was traveling down Highway 90 with her husband Marino Melovich and her young son. The couple were allegedly followed by police for some time while they traveled down the highway, until eventually one of the patrol cars sped up and cut them off, forcing them to pull over. When the officer in the lead car exited his vehicle, Claudia and Marino recognized him as 28-year-old Ivan Jesus Leguizamon, Claudia's ex-boyfriend. The two had broken up several months earlier. When Leguizamon approached the couple's vehicle, he asked to speak with Claudia. Marino got out and stepped away, giving them some privacy. Reports state that during their exchange, Leguizamon demanded that Claudia return to their relationship. When she refused, saying that she had made up her mind, Leguizamon pulled out his gun and, without another word, shot Claudia in the head. According to local media, the only reason that Marino survived was that Leguizamon's gun jammed, giving him time to retaliate. The men wrestled for some time, and Marino was nearly strangled to death, but at some point, Leguizamon gave up. He apparently showed no remorse for the crime, and mockingly asked Marino if he and his son would come to visit him in prison. The officers who were at the scene with Leguizamon apparently made no attempt to intervene, and simply watched as he brutalized the family. Leguizamon is now facing numerous charges and is expected to receive a life sentence for his heinous crime. The 2 patrolmen who were with him will also be prosecuted for their roles in the murder. If you tuned into last week's episode of Crimes of the Week International, you might remember the story that we covered out of the Colombian town of Gaeta, where 7 people were brutally struck by a speeding truck after leaving a party. 6 of the 7 victims were tragically killed as a result of the collision, which is said to be an alleged case of drinking and driving. The man accused of being behind the wheel is a prominent businessman named Enrique Vives Caballero. This week, the story took a mysterious and shocking turn when it was announced that a man had been murdered by hitmen at the home of the only surviving witness in the case. According to reports, the murder happened around noon on September 21st, when a gunman got off a motorcycle outside of the house, went inside, and shot 22-year-old Elmer Alexis Sierra to death. The gunman fled immediately afterwards with an accomplice who was driving the motorcycle. The residence is where 30-year-old Rafaela Petit and her 14-year-old nephew lived. Rafaela was one of the 6 people killed in the crash last week, while the 14-year-old, who has not been identified, is the only surviving victim and witness. At the time of this recording, no official link has been established between the hit on Elmer Sierra and the vehicular killings, though given the timing, the crime has caused massive speculation. According to media reports we could find, investigators believe at this stage that the hit likely resulted from a personal issue between Sierra and an unknown party, as Sierra is not related to Rafaela or her 14-year-old nephew. He was reportedly doing construction work on the house at the time of his murder. However, the incident is still under investigation. In the meantime, the 14-year-old boy remains in protective custody at a care center while he recovers from his injuries. Authorities in Western Australia say that a 40-year-old Uber driver is lucky to be alive this week after he was brutally attacked during an attempted carjacking and left for dead. According to reports, the incident took place on the evening of September 16th, when Kumar Subramaniam was taking a meal break in the parking lot of a local shopping centre in the Perth suburb of Forestfield. That's when he was approached by a strange man who opened the door of his car, pulled out a serrated knife, and told him to get out of the vehicle or he would stab him. Though Kumar tried to reason with the man, the suspect wasn't willing to back off. He responded by stabbing and slashing the 40-year-old in his chest, knee, and both of his hands. As Kumar began to yell and attract attention, the suspect finally stopped and ran away empty-handed. Despite no longer being under attack, Kumar's assailant had left him for dead. He was bleeding profusely and later recalled that his vision was beginning to blur. Luckily for him, bystanders came to his aid, including one man who called 911 and put pressure on Kumar's wounds until help could arrive. Thankfully, he survived. While Kumar's assailant, 24-year-old Cade Wallum, was quickly identified and tracked down, the same can't be said for the man who may have saved Kumar's life. In interviews since the attack took place, he said that he is currently searching for the man and wants to thank him in person. At the time of this recording, the mysterious Good Samaritan still remains anonymous. Cade Wallum has been arrested and remains in police custody. Thousands of people are in mourning this week following a devastating attack on a Russian university campus that took the lives of 6 people and left more than 20 others injured. According to reports, the terrifying incident began at approximately 11 a.m. on September 20th, when an 18-year-old student named Timur Bekmenserov arrived at the campus of Perm State University, approximately 800 miles east of Moscow. He was reportedly armed with a long gun of some kind, as well as a knife, and began by firing at people outside before making his way into one of the buildings. An estimated 3,000 students and teachers were on the school campus when the shooting took place. Witnesses described a horrifying scene as people ran for their lives and jumped out of windows to avoid being hit by bullets. Others hid under desks and attempted to barricade themselves in classrooms as the assailant walked the halls. One witness told Russian media that he and his classmates had narrowly avoided getting shot after their teacher tied the handles of their classroom doors together with a piece of cable. The gunman fired at the door once and then the wall, but moved on. Sadly, many others were not as lucky. 6 people were tragically killed in the attack, most of whom were students. They have since been identified as 18-year-old Ksenia Samchenko, 19-year-old Yaroslav Aramalev, 26-year-old Anna Igaldina, 19-year-old Yekaterina Shakirova, 20-year-old Alexandra Makova, and 66-year-old Margarita Engos. Between 24 and 28 others were also wounded. The harrowing ordeal finally came to an end when police officer Konstantin Kalinin confronted Bekmenserov and returned fire after he was shot at. Bekmetsarov fell to the ground after being hit, and Kalinin reportedly ran up to him, removed his weapons from reach, and performed first aid. Kalinin and another officer, Vladimir Makarov, who led students and teachers to safety, are both being praised for their response to the shooting. The heinous crime comes just 4 months after a similarly deadly shooting took place at a high school in the Russian city of Kazan. The perpetrator in that instance was a former student, while Bekmetsarov has been identified as a freshman at the university. As far as what prompted the heinous crime, apparently Bekmetsarov was motivated purely by a desire to do harm to others. He said in a recent social media post that he was consumed by hatred. At the time of this recording, he is reportedly still in the hospital in critical condition. One of his legs was amputated, presumably because of injuries he sustained during the attack. That brings us to the end of this edition of Crimes of the Week International. If you're a fan of the new series, don't forget to tell us in the comments section below. While you're there, make sure to subscribe to Crime Zone for more true crime content like this, making sure to hit the notification bell to stay up to date with our latest videos. Thank you for watching.